You going to? Well, you will not be home enough. You didn't hit that deck one. That deck, y'all. If you didn't fit with the rest of the week. Oh, that's funny. He told me to be careful and knock it down. And he was the one knock it down.
Yeah, as long as the dog touches it.
I don't even know why you hit a wall. You should know you was gonna hit that shoe. You didn't hit the thing and knocked it off the wall. You look and break the lamp, cause they could have broke this. Could have came down and broke the lamp.
become the deadliest serial killer in the world. Lightyear is a law student and is frustrated by the failing justice system in Japan. Looking for answers, he decides to hack into the police database and discovers that tons of criminals are being released and never punished for their crimes. But luckily, he'll soon have the power to fix this problem. Wanting to see for himself, he goes to a seedy bar to spy on a criminal. This guy here is a child killer and starts bragging about how nobody could lock him up. Light is threatened at knife point by this gang and forced out of the bar, but outside he finds a mysterious black book laying in the street. He takes it home and cracks it open, learning that this book has special powers, but with those powers come a set of 5 rules. The first rule is if he writes down someone's true name on its pages, that person will die in 40 seconds. Okay, most of us would be skeptical here because magic doesn't exist, but there's no way we're not going to test it out. The most tempting thing to do is write down the name of someone you might already know and hate, but this could associate you with the death, so I would make a hard rule to never kill anyone I've met before. The next mistake is to write down a public figure that you might dislike. The death would get way too much attention from the government and would be heavily investigated. The smartest way to test this is to kill someone who is already expected to die, so that in the off chance this is real, you aren't doing too much damage and it's not obvious that you did it. I would research who the world's oldest living person is and write their name down. They've had a good long life and everyone was expecting them to drop dead, so it's not going to be a surprise to anyone who they croak. Now, killing is fun and all, but the financial exploits in this book could be huge. They have a power that a lot of people wouldn't. So you know your way around the dark web, you could author assassinations and get filthy rich. You'll soon find out there are other ways in this book that can be exploited, and Light doesn't know that they could pay off big time. Now, this brings us to the second rule of the death count. Only take a fact that the writer knows the person's name and thinks of it as they write the name down. Light here decides to test it out and they want his killer announced in the news. In the next day, reads an article about how that same man was found dead of a heart attack. It might be a strange coincidence, but once you confirm this power is real. Later that night, he tries to reach out for him and writes his name on the death note. 40 seconds later, the killer collapses to the ground and Light here is shocked to see him die of a heart attack, just like the horse guy. This law student is now the most dangerous person on the planet and with a taste of blood, he's just getting started. Okay, the thing that died of a heart attack will perception, but Light here will soon find out that this is a serious enough. For starters, Japan is one of the countries who already has the lowest death rates in the entire world, partly because it has less problems with releasing people. But if scores of healthy sushi-eating criminals start to die from heart attacks, this will be reversed, and we have to be smart about how to use this power without getting caught. First of all, we need to make sure we understand the limits of this book, and before we go to killing certain crimes, do some heavy experimentation with this thing. And we know the facts of shooting death note. You could kill a public simply by setting it away without looking suspicious. If I wanted to make a death, I might try writing a name or reason. These ideas might not work, but learn what's possible. On his way back home, this demonic creature is introduced as a death note. He's decided to write a name. The creature explains that only those who touch the death note can see it. It is neither its ally or enemy. He asks the monster what its name is and is introduced to his new partner in crime, Ryuk. Alright, even though he seems nice enough, we can't assume this guy's on our side. If he's neutral, then he can ruin our plans or dox us at any given moment for his own amusement. This thing is a loose egg you do not want to leave yourself vulnerable to. Obviously, writing his name down in the death book is a place to start, but he probably can't be killed and it would just piss him off. The best strategy here is to find out his motives and bribe him. I would be doing research to find out more about this creature that might exist in folklore. Light here doesn't know enough about him yet, but soon we'll learn more about this death god that we can take advantage of later. Light here decides to ramp things up and goes on a killing spree. No one knows who's committing these murders, but they start calling this vigilante Kiru, which is the Japanese pronunciation of killer. 4 months later, and the police department can't figure out the connection between all these dead criminals. They believe a virus might have killed the victims, but the captain here thinks they might have a serial killer. He goes to meet the commissioner and learns that the brilliant detective Al he's analyzed the data and figured out he's pure on each other, but he's also a single person through unnatural means.
Metro by T-Mobile will make your movie night epic with 5G. Get more choices with the largest selection of free 5G phones, like the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. Switch now and save more. Only at Metro.
Light here is about to meet his match, and it could break everything. He tunes into an international broadcast where the Detective L announces to the world he's been tasked with helping uncover who Kira, the vigilante, is. He describes the killer as predictable and immature. Taking it personally, Light here writes the detective's name into his death note and waits for him to die on TV. But when the man collapses from a heart attack, the real L reveals he's tricked Kira. He had a convict impersonate him and made it seem like the broadcast was shown internationally when it was actually restricted to Tokyo. In one big brave move, he's proven that Kira can kill people remotely and is also living in the Tokyo area. Okay, this L guy is an intellectual force to be reckoned with, but there's a way to turn the tables here by turning the government into public enemy number one. From now on, I'm writing every cause of death to be either suicide by capital punishment or suicide by cop. The death sentence in Japan is still active, and as much as 50 executions happen each year. This is a chess match of two extremely intelligent people, so using his own agencies to do your killing for you will force him to retreat and find a different plan to attack. Back home, Light has dinner with his family, and we find out his dad is the police chief in charge of the Kira investigation. Light offers to help with the case, but the man won't let his son get involved. Upset, he leaves the table and goes upstairs, where he hacks into the police reports and discovers that Detective L knows he's a student. He'll need to shake things up to throw them off his scent. 3 days later, the police are shocked to find criminals are dying every hour and on a perfect schedule. L here deduces that Kira can also manipulate the times of death, but this change in strategy happened after they discovered he was a student. So the detective realizes that he has access to the team's information and they might have a mole. Okay, Light has just confirmed that he can access the police department's information, and it gives them an opportunity to take that advantage away. I would go analog with the entire investigation and take everything offline, but use the database as a decoy by planting misinformation to study how he reacts to it. If we already know that Kira is a student, then we need to narrow our scope to a specific school if we want to get closer. We've also seen that Kira lets his emotions get the better of him when he's under pressure. I would put false information on the police database that the dean of Kira's school is coming in to give a testimony in less than an hour. He'll see the fake report and just might kill the dean, so whichever dean is dead by the end of the day is the school Kira goes to. On his way home, Light suddenly notices that he's being followed. Somebody is onto him, and he needs to find out who this is before they catch him. The death note asks how he will get the stalker's name, but he has a plan, and he's got to use rule number 4 to get it. After writing the cause of death, details of the death should be written in the next 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The next day, he's riding the bus with his girlfriend, and the stalker from yesterday has followed them. This is no accident, and Light has a master plan. At the next bus stop, a man gets in and puts a gun to the driver's head. Light tells the stalker that he'll stop the criminal, but the man tells him not to risk it, revealing he's an FBI agent and gets him to back down. Light here drops a piece of paper on the floor, and the hijacker picks it up, and after reading it, points his gun at him, but is shocked when he sees Ryuk standing in front of him. He tries shooting the monster, but the bullets go straight through. Freaking out, the man urges the driver to stop, and he gets off the bus, only to get hit by a car. This whole thing was an elaborate setup to learn more about this FBI agent, using rule number 4 to make the criminal hijack the bus and get him killed. Okay, this changes everything. If we can use this death note to control people's actions, I'm using this to get rich or die trying. We can use this on a millionaire, making them write us into their will for a full inheritance just before they die. Let's be honest, if you're going to kill people, you might as well take their money while you're at it. Back home, Light thinks that L sent the FBI agent after him, and there might be more than one. He knows he can't kill the agent stalking him, as he'll be the prime suspect, but if all agents were to die, then he would be safe. Ryuk is surprised at Light's bloodlust and starts to look concerned. There's a lot more to this death god than meets the eye. Okay, this is interesting. Ryuk should be happy here because as we learned, every death will extend his life. Clearly, we don't know everything about this guy, and if he's keeping secrets from us, we need to find some leverage over him to make sure he won't screw us over. Now, we saw in the bus that physical injuries cannot hurt this creature, so killing him is out of the question. But blackmail and bribery might still be on the table. Threatening to destroy this book might get us answers he doesn't want to give, so we might be able to use this to get him to do our bidding. We just have to be careful not to piss him off. The next day, the FBI agent leaves his hotel and heads to the subway. He's followed by his fiancée Naomi here and doesn't know that she's on the train watching him. He takes a folder left on a rack and finds a message from Kira, who knows him by name and wants to talk with him through this transmitter. With little choice, he activates the walkie-talkie and listens. Light demonstrates he's the real Kira by having the man next to the agent die from a heart attack. He then asks him how many other agents are in Japan, and he's told there are 11 others, but he doesn't know their names. Light then asks the agent to write his leader's name inside this box on the first page. He's fallen for the fifth one. Even if you do not actually possess the death note, anyone can use it if you can recognize the person in his or her name. After writing it, he's told to access his computer as he'll receive all 12 IDs from his boss. He's then instructed to write their names in the remaining boxes. This was Light's brilliant plan. He tricked the agent into writing everyone's names on a page of the death note, and with it, he just saw the death sentences of all the other agents as they all start dropping dead. When he gets off at the next station, he collapses from a heart attack and looks back to see Light standing in front of him. The agent's fiance rushes to save him, but it's too late as Light's train pulls out of the station. He's won for now, but he's just created another enemy, and she will be much harder to beat. Okay, that was a genius way to extract the information, but he also made some mistakes here. First of all, going on the train was a terrible idea because now they will be scraping through the security footage of the incident, and this hooded figure would be a prime suspect. You could easily be tracked back to your home and caught. Now, if the agent is already being manipulated, there's no purpose to meet him on the train. I would have brought him to a much more controlled and isolated environment away from the public to make sure there were no cameras and nobody was following him. Personally, I wouldn't leak the FBI agents at all because they can reveal much of the insider information. This snares them the suspects through the evil connections to the police. They can automate their investigation and won't steal the suspects no matter what. The best way to throw the stock on the FBI investigation without killing them is a false confession. I would make them come to the market of the police station and one of them make a here. Yeah, this second will have a heart attack, making a look at the first round. Then find the death note by canceling the behavior of the heart. They tell me it's a flattering conflict and wrong, but at the very least, life is nice plans to her head and cover her tracks. Later that day, the police chief announces his investigation that Kira one criminal is being kids in the knowing how dangerous this has gotten. In every single living only 6 of them. The police expressed their frustration with the fact that the man chose to wish to continue to work in the case. Except for the investigation now they needed to kill him. As we expected, they all introduced themselves by name and choose them out. If he was Kira, he would have all their names and they would have to get in this battle, but Elle has a new strategy. Okay, this guy is crazy. There's one detail here that tells me Kira is super thin. Chess match can burn the same amount of calories as running a marathon. Crab fishermen also do this. They have only a 3-day window to hunt for crab, and they need to stay awake as long as possible to maximize their time. Al is looking for an advantage even in his diet, and it tells me he's thinking on more levels than Kira is in the moment to ensure he doesn't miss any opportunity to catch his killer. Later, the dead agent's fiancée, Naomi, has taken matters into her own hands. She finds information on the bus hijacking from the newspaper and meets the driver who mentions that her fiancé was seen arguing with a young man, but he disappeared before the police arrived. Meanwhile, Elle watches the surveillance tapes of the agent's death and finds an important detail in the footage. With one glance, he's figured it all out. He informs the team that he's narrowed down the list of suspects to the Baileys in the police department, including the police chief's son, Light. He knows that the FBI agent was tracking Light and knows the agent's wife used to be part of the FBI, and since she followed him, she must have felt there was something suspicious going on. Suspecting Kira was on the subway, Elle arranges to plant cameras in the police chief's home and keep watch over Light for 7 days. Now, this is all well and good, but it's also completely unnecessary because Japan has a stop and frisk policy. They're super polite about it, but if this kid has proven he can kill someone at any given hour of the day, then it's either done in his mind or done through an object on his person. If he's frisked, he'll either run away, which lets you arrest him, or they would find the book. This solution takes no resources other than a well-placed beat cop. The next day at college, Light here is greeted by his girlfriend and the his girlfriend backs him up. Lightyear takes out a piece of paper from the death note and writes down the woman's name on it, but nothing happens to her. The woman warns him that he can't kill her because she gave him a fake name. Okay, this woman is dangerous. Her fiancé has been killed, and she has nothing left to live for. Desperate people who want vengeance are the kinds of people who will burn the whole place down just to prove a point. And that makes for a very dangerous loose end that we need to deal with the right way. The only way out of this is to satisfy her bloodlust. I would find a criminal to manipulate to tell her he is Kira, then the cause of death is that the manipulated criminal gets shot by the woman and killed. This gives enough emotional trauma for her to believe that she's gotten vengeance for her fiancé's death by killing the man herself. Later that day, Light returns home and discovers that his room has been broken into. Earlier, he placed pencil lead in the hinge of his door, and it's now broken. Now, Light knows he's under surveillance and can't do anything with the Death Note or Ryuk until he tricks them. The police chief is told Light will be left alone if his son does nothing suspicious, and there are still more deaths. The college student still isn't cleared of being a murderer just yet. Okay, this looks like Lightyear is cornered, but they played right into his hands. First of all, you can't build a case on this because you can't prove a negative. No deaths happened during his surveillance. That's circumstantial evidence at best, and it isn't enough to arrest him or even take him to court. This is a fool's errand, but there's another massive oversight here. Al should have considered that this case is a lawsuit. His father is the chief of police, and he should have been according to Japanese law under Article 23 of the 1998 Act requires that in a criminal investigation, the suspect must have been notified by the police. And they not under Article 30. Light can now sue them for breaking the law, and they'll be forced to leave him alone. He had a great opportunity here to sabotage the whole operation, and he didn't take it. With the 7 years surveillance, he's still observing the college students. Breaking things that were arrested and not happening in court. They really like it. Watching. What's happening? Whoever dies of a heart attack is custody, and Light hasn't moved a muscle. They're going to in, but Light is turning off because inside his kit bag is a miniature TV playing the news and a piece of paper from the Death Note. The college should be cleared of suspicion. El received a call from the FA-agent's fiancé, claiming she was her own life to prove that Light is here. But the worst part of her plan was to make his girlfriend call him to be at the argument. So they both watch the cameras as Light is building the scene going. Busted is told to confess that he is Kira. He begs the woman to let her go and insists that he's not dead. The woman reveals her real name and dares him to kill her. He says he must have meant to put her name down, but stops when he hears police sirens. Dismisses his girlfriend breaks her and left her and gets shot. The woman is horrified by her mistake and kills herself in the guilt. Light burns his girlfriend to death. Puts on a good show, but it turns out this is just completely wrong. At the subway, he noticed her wearing a cross on it, and he traced it to the church where she was getting married. Trying to catch him. He then wrote that his girlfriend would be shot to death without specifying by whom. Since the woman was the only one in the room with a gun, the Death Note caused her to kill his girlfriend. When his father comes to take him home, he asks that he can go to Kira investigation so that he can get revenge on Kira. That's when Ella appears and approves his membership. These two masterminds are just getting warmed up, but they both don't realize a new player is about to join the game. In another part of the scene, a famous young woman is being followed by her delusional stalker who wants to kill her. She's cornered with no one to help, but the man suddenly collapses from a heart attack and a Death Note falls right next to him. There's more than one book, and things are about to get way more interesting.
Well, what do you think? How would you beat Death Note? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a deadly day.
Set things up so theories will continue to appear over the next 3 weeks. Just watch me, theorists.
and there are actually 37 episodes. Like I said, 25 of the most tense, densely plotted episodes ever put to air. For those of you unfamiliar, main character Light Yagami has it all. The top grades in his class, the attention of all his female classmates, and a magical notebook that has the ability to kill people when he writes their names in it. Okay, so one of those things is not quite like the others. Unlike most people who get kind of icky prospect of killing people with the flick of a pen, Light sees this as his opportunity to purify the world of evil, digging out all the world's criminals and in the process becoming the vigilante known as Kira. And no, that's not a racist way of saying killer. His name is actually Kira. Alongside he attracts top 10 killers and pits them head-to-head, hand-to-mouse against the brilliant deductive mind of a mysterious detective locally as hell. It is no question my favorite anime, but as I get ready to watch that much time reaching personal conflicts with like now that we as the fans are slightly larger contributors here. Just how many killings are happening? The series might have some epic montage sequences. Well, about as epic as you can get when the action consists of writing people's names down. The entire point of these montages is to illustrate the extent of these killing sprees, but when it comes to the question of how many names were actually written into the Death Note, things kinda get blurry. So today, I'm working to get the best estimate possible for how many lives Light cut short during his reign as Kira. Now, I say estimate since most of his killing occurs off-screen, meaning we can never get a 100% accurate number. That said, though, we can get close if we know 1, the duration of time during which Kira is active, and 2, the rate at which Kira kills. So number 1, how long does Kira kill for? Well, it's a simple question that has a complicated answer. You see, for one thing, there are a total of 4 people who operate under the Kira alias at one point or another, as Light creates these complex notebook handoffs in his attempt to evade capture. Making matters worse is that sometimes multiple Kiras are active at the same time, with as many as 3 Death Notes at play. Fortunately, we have access to the complete time-stamped list of all the major events that happened throughout the series, thanks to the handy timeline that was printed in the bonus 13th volume of the manga. And it bears mentioning that yes, this is a timeline covering the manga, however, it tells the exact same story as the anime, only time shifted 3 years earlier because it came out first. They kept the months and days consistent from manga to anime, only changing the year by 3 years, so really the absolute time that Kira is active remains the same. So now, spoiler alert, I'm about to show you a timeline mapping out the whole series, so go binge watch it and then come back here. Seriously, it'll be a great weekend activity for you. Everyone back? Great. And here it is. Yep, it is a lot. 6 years of killing spread across 4 main Kiras using 3 separate notebooks and a partridge in a pear tree. Add to that the police, the mafia, and whoo boy, it is more confusing than Light playing musical notebooks in the woods. But at this point, we have a solid idea of how long each of the Kiras was in operation. As expected, Light was the longest at 2,033 total days. Second Kira, model and actress Misa Amane, is only active for 67 days, primarily because she was less interested in killing for justice and more interested in getting into Light's life. Light's life. Kyosuke Higuchi is Kira 3.0, active for 136 days. And finally, Teru Mikami, a devoted disciple of Kira, holds the note for the shortest amount of time, only 61 days, but he's also the most enthusiastic about it. Whoa, backspace on up there, buddy, because now that we know who had a Death Note and for how long, we can calculate how many people each of them killed based on their rates of killing. Man, if this video doesn't get flagged by YouTube as being advertiser unfriendly, it will be a miracle. So the key to estimating Light's rate of killing lies in his first encounter with Ryuk, Light's Shinigami, or God of Death. When Ryuk first appears, we learn that Light's been writing the names of criminals in the Death Note for 5 days.
Several Death Notes have made their way into the human world in the past, but you're the first to have written this many names. Look at how many people you've killed in only 5 days.
And look what we do. The show gives us a glimpse of his open notebook where we can observe that he writes names divided into 4 columns and 39 rows each. That's a total of 156 names per page. That clip also shows us that Light's already completed 2 full pages, a total of 312 names. If we take the lowball estimate and assume that Light only has filled those 2 pages in the 5 days, then the average comes out to 62.4 names per day. Now realize that this is only an average. Light obviously isn't writing exactly 62 names every single day. For instance, there's one day than one way to get the job done. But sometimes, there's really no comparison. With all the power and versatility you'll ever need, you'll get more done in a day than Polaris.
History.
In the end, you're nothing more than a crazy serial killer.
Oh no, Light is much more dangerous. The term serial killer specifically excludes war crimes and government-sanctioned killings. And by that definition, Kira comes out on top by a huge margin. Some of the deadliest serial killers in recorded history, Luis Garabito and Pedro Lopez, have fewer than 200 known victims, while Kira's number in the hundreds of thousands. Even the deadliest conventional serial killers are around only 1/10 of 1% as deadly as Kira. And that is just Light. We still have 3 other Kiras to discuss. Misa's number is just a drop in the bucket compared to Light's killing spree. Only around 400. She had a short run and only killed for attention. Any killings that she does do during that 5-year intermission period are more for helping out Light's total, because he's the type of person who wouldn't allow that power to anyone else. He probably wants to savor all that writing to himself. And as we see during the montage for that segment, they're both on computers together researching, but he's the only one that we ever see writing names. When the audience learns that Higuchi is the 3rd Kira, we see his notebook laid out on the table, and it shows that he's written a total of 64 names, 16 rows across, 4 columns. If that's what's in a day's work for Higuchi, then that would make his daily body count almost exactly the same as what we calculated for Light earlier. An average of 64 names per day times 136 days works out to 8,704 people dead at Higuchi's hands. And lastly, Teru Mikami. Out of all the Kiras, Mikami holds his death note for the fewest number of days, but he fills in 1 page per day. That might not sound like much, but 1 page for Mikami is serious business. With over 6 columns and 76 rows per page, Mikami is executing a whopping 456 people every single day. I'm not sure what's more impressive, the number of names that Mikami manages to write every day, or that he manages to squeeze them all in there. Mikami might not be the brightest when it comes to executing Light's strategy, but you've got to give this guy points for penmanship. With a total of 61 active days, Mikami's total kill count tallies in at 27,816. 27,000 people in 2 months. So to recap, our tallies are Light Yagami 242,112, Misa Amane 392, Kiyosuke Higuchi 8,704, and Teru Mikami 27,816, adding up to just under 280,000 total victims. 280,000 people dead. To give you a point of comparison, that is just shy of the 300,000 Americans who died during World War I. The only wars to kill more U.S. soldiers were World War I, II, and the Civil War. And remember, this estimate is a conservative number. We don't see proof of it, but Misa could absolutely be more active during that 5-year intermission if Light allowed her to be, and Light himself could definitely be more aggressive in his writing if he wanted to be. For an even better comparison of the vastness of the number of people these guys are killing, consider this. When we see Light's notebook open, yes, we see some Western names, but there's also a few names written in Japanese. This makes total sense since the series is set in Japan, and Light's first language is Japanese, so it would just be an easier place for him to target. In 2009, Japan's prison population was 75,250, just a fourth of Kira's total kill count. In other words, during his 6 years, he could have exterminated Japan's entire prison population and still had time to deal with the rest of the world's criminals. That said, the U.S. has a few more people in prison, 2,217,000 to be exact. So even if Kira's efforts were entirely concentrated on the U.S., it would have only been around 13% of the total U.S. prison population. Furthermore, worldwide, there are 874,100 people murdered last year. Holy jeez, that's a huge number. So even if Kira only targeted murders, his total number of killings over 6 years would only be 32% of the total number of murders in 1 year. Oh boy. The world is kind of a scary place sometimes. And I gotta be honest, Light, for all this purging the world talk, made it a bit scarier. You see, even though he sees himself as the embodiment of justice,
I am justice.
he kills innocents along the way in order to stay out of prison. Remember Ray's fiancé, 11 FBI agents that were sent to investigate him, L, Watari. Then, of course, the killings that were done by the other Kiras. Light justifies these deaths as necessary in his quest to bring peace to the world, and in truth, those people make up only a 1/10 of 1% of Kira's total death toll. But is he right in this assessment? When we say that Kira killed 279,024 criminals, that's under the assumption that all of which the suspect isn't allowed to have contact with an attorney. There's even one case where a prosecutor threatened to kill a suspect during his interrogation. Japan's conviction rate is, get this, 99.8%. Let me make this easy for you. If you're in court in a Japanese courtroom, you are going to prison. Just stop wasting your time. Get started on your prison sentence and get it over with faster. It's a system where guilty until proven innocent really prevails. And in Kira's eyes, they're all guilty, regardless of the evidence. By the end of the series, people and governments just send him names. With Light killing hundreds of thousands of people, you think he's got time to check each and every one? So what's the upshot here? Is Kira truly justice? Well, let me give you the numbers and you can go debate it in the comments. Near the end of the anime, we find out that by the end of Kira's 6-year reign, the world's violent crime rate has fallen by 70%.
Since Canada's appearance 6 years ago, wars have stopped, and global crime rates have been reduced by over 70%.
A 70% decrease in the number of worldwide murders would decrease the number of killings in a given year by 611,870. So by killing an average of 46,500 people per year, around 2,000 of those being innocent, Kira prevented over 600,000 murders every single year. And that's not even mentioning all the other violent crime that went down. This is the dilemma of Death Note. Light is clearly a villain, saying he's driven by a better world, when in actuality his ego and lust for power are his true driving motivations. And yet, you can't deny he got results. So was he right all along? The show provides no clear answers, and remember, it's all just fiction, but it raises a great debate. A debate that hopefully I was able to help you out with by providing more accurate numbers so you can assess the situation. And although I can't answer any of those questions definitively for you, I can at least present you with one final and slightly lighter question related to Death Note. Could Kira kill Goku? Spoiler alert, the answer is obviously yes, but go ahead, debate it in the comments, because remember, it's all just a theory. A film theory. And cuts.
Staying up half the night searching for savings on your prescriptions? Just ask your CVS pharmacist. We search for savings for you, from coupons to lower cost options. Plus, earn up to $50 extra bucks rewards each year just for filling at CVS Pharmacy.
Taking advantage of every weakness of your opponent and neutralizing every You are the deadliest serial killer in the world. When someone is following in your footsteps, and every mistake they make could get you caught, you'll have to sacrifice everyone to outsmart the world's greatest detective. And only the most brutal plans will keep you one step ahead. When the world is days away from finding out your true identity, what do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the Death God's game in Death Note 2. It's been 6 months since Lightyear discovered a Death Note and has been using it to kill criminals around the city by writing their names down in the book, hiding behind the alias Kira, which means killer in Japanese. The police haven't been able to gather enough evidence to catch him, but El here, the leading detective, still suspects Light is Kira, the mysterious serial killer they are looking for. But after a tragic accident involving an FBI agent killing Light's girlfriend, the investigation has started looking for other suspects. No one knows that Light secretly killed his own girlfriend by writing her name in the Death Note to avoid suspicion from the detectives. 2 days later, Lightyear arranges a funeral for his girlfriend, and everyone has gathered to pay their respects. He asks his father, the chief of police, for permission to join the investigation and help find Kira. But his father has no idea that Lightyear just wants to find El's true name so he can write it in his Death Note and kill him. Okay, join the investigation team, as the same killer they're hunting down makes for a very high-pressure situation, and we needed a way to make sure we avoid suspicion for long enough to kill L, his arch-nemesis. If I were him, I would use beta blockers, which stops the effects of adrenaline on the body and slows down your heart rate. This way, I can join the investigation team without showing the physiological effects of stress and hide my anxiety from L if the investigation starts leading back to me. This is a risky strategy, but it's actually one that's been used by Sun Tzu, one of China's greatest military tacticians, to infiltrate his enemy's army and defeat them. The Art of War says that in order to know your enemy, you must become your enemy. And Lightyear knows that even though it's risky, joining the police investigation puts him one step ahead. The Art of War is now an Audible, and the principle principles in there teach Light and Elf how to win in every possible situation. Taking advantage of every weakness of your opponent and neutralizing every strength is exactly what makes The Art of War the perfect book to beat your opponents and why it's been the top military tactics and strategy guide in 2,500 years. And with the new Audible Plus catalog, which includes hundreds of free titles, you can read The Art of War as soon as you sign up. It's only a 1-hour listen, and in my life helps me think strategically and gain an advantage in every situation, just like Light and Elf. Thank you to Audible for sponsoring this video. Please use my link, audible.com/howtobeat, or text howtobeat to 500-500 and claim your 100% free 1-month trial. Light here is taken to the investigation headquarters, where he's asked to hand over all communication devices. This place has been designed with the best security to keep most operations secret. He meets with a leading detective in the investigation, who introduces himself as Ryuzaki, using a fake name to protect his identity. The detective admits to Light that he still suspects him, and that he and his girlfriend killed as a way to avoid suspicion. Okay, L is dangerously close to the truth, and with one wrong move, Light could be caught. But I would use this problem as an opportunity to convince him that I wasn't Kira. Now, first of all, we know that L here is willing to break the law, because we saw in the first movie that he planted cameras in Light's room without a warrant, so we have to assume this whole place is under surveillance as well. I would volunteer to live here at the headquarters to be observed, bring a page of the death note, write the names of my victims down inside of my pocket, and then erase it so there's no evidence. If all the victims die only during office hours while I'm constantly under surveillance, then it will appear increasingly unlikely that I was Kira. The death god Ryuk reminds Light that he can receive the ability to see someone's true name and date of death in exchange for half his lifespan. It's a tempting offer, but Light here refuses. Okay, giving up half your lifespan is pretty expensive, but maybe there's still a way we can do this without the eyes and use the death note to discover L's true identity. As a citizen of Japan, L is not immune from the many obligations of living in a society and still has to file paperwork using his real name just like the rest of us. I would look for a way to take advantage of this, because we might not have his name, but we do have his phone number. Now, Japan basically has 4 telecommunications companies, which are NTT Docomo, KDDI, SoftBank, and Rakuten Mobile, and his name would be on file as a customer. If we figure out which company holds his number, then I would research the employees of that company and use the death note to kill one of them. But as an additional detail of the death, I'd first make him bring me the name of the person on file for the number. This note works with rule number 4 of the death note, which lets you add details about the death before they die, and it will happen. We can get L's true name and write it in the death note to kill him, without even needing to be a part of the investigation. Later that night, we find Misa here, who is minutes away from death. She's being chased by a stalker, who corners her in a dead end, and as the man approaches, he takes out a knife. He's about to kill her when this mysterious creature writes a name down in a book, and suddenly, the stalker dies from a heart attack. A death note falls right next to his body, and when the girl picks it up for a closer look, she comes face to face with a monster. This is Rev, a god of death who tells her she can kill anyone if she writes their name inside this book. The girl likes the sound of that, and she's about to do a lot of damage. Okay, a death note has the power to kill anybody if you know their name and their face, so it's extremely important it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Now, we learned in the first movie that Misa here is actually a famous TV host, and that's exactly why she shouldn't have the book. Not only will the girl's publicity and paparazzi make it impossible to keep a secret, but just imagine if one of the Kardashian girls got a hold of a death note, you'll start to understand the dangers we're facing here. But if I were her, I might be less worried about the police and more worried about the infamous Kira, who has been secretly using his own death note to kill criminals throughout the city. We have no idea if he's going to see us as a threat, a competitor, or an ally. I would use this book only in life-threatening situations and keep the news to myself.
Numbers move you, but some can stop you in your tracks, like the tens of thousands of people who were diagnosed with certain HPV-related cancers. For most people, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers. Gardasil 9 is a vaccine given to adults through age 45 that can help protect against certain diseases caused by HPV, including cervical, vaginal, and certain head and neck cancers, such as throat and back of mouth.
Later that day, a newscaster reports that tapes have been sent to their station by someone claiming to be the second Kira, and if they don't play them live on television, they will all die. As a demonstration, the second Kira will kill this famous critic, and seconds later, the man drops dead in front of everyone. The people are shocked, as they now realize there are 2 Kiras. Supporters try to gather and cheer the critic's death outside the news station. A police officer arrives and tells them all to leave, but seconds later, he has a heart attack and dies in front of the audience. Light's sister checks on the man, and appearing on the broadcast, both Light and his father are worried. More haters start dropping dead all around her, and with Light's sister being a critic of Kira, she could die too. Okay, Lightyear is no longer the most powerful person in the world, but what nobody has noticed yet is that this guy was killed without anyone knowing his name, and that means the second Kira has given half of her life to gain the Death God's eyes. Now, if I were Lightyear, I would be a little pissed off. You might think that two Death Note users should get along, but most people don't like to share power once they have it. If there were any disagreements in who to target or how to kill, it could turn into an absolute bloodbath, and with this power, she can find Light's name and kill him. If it were me, now would be the perfect time to take Ryu's steel and give half of my life to see everyone's name out of pure necessity. This has become a nuclear arms race of supernatural killing powers, and we need to make sure we can kill another Death Note user if necessary, or else we won't survive. On the tape, the killer offers to help Kira, revealing that they have the eyes and want to see his Death God. Hearing this, L is floored by the news, realizing if they have a literal Death God, this changes everything. Lightyear heads to the station, hoping to find the second Kira, because if this killer truly supports him, Light can get help to kill Detective L. Okay, Light shouldn't be so happy here, because this second Kira just fucked up big time. She admitted on public broadcast that she has magic eyes, and they're both doing this with supernatural gifts. This information can lead L here to learn about the Death Note, but she's done something even more stupid, and that's sending in a tape at all. Fingerprints are easy to find, and they can track the shipment back to the sender, but more importantly, it's actually been proven that any audio recording since 2005 can be located using just the background element. The electrical frequency from power grids have a unique fluctuation, and matching that frequency to a database, they can analyze the tape's waveform data and locate which power grid the tape was recorded in. They might also be able to find the time and date it was recorded, because this is a mini DV tape, which can carry embedded time code for the footage. She's made herself vulnerable in too many ways, and I would be trying to track down and get control of this user before the police get their hands on a Death Note. At the news station, Misa is going home when she sees the girl from the broadcast who challenged Kira. Using her special eyes, she's able to see the girl's name, but spots Light and notices she can't see how long he will live. She realizes that this means he must have a Death Note, and that Light here is the original Kira. That night, she surprises him on his way home, admitting that she's the second Kira. He takes her back to his room, where he chews her out for not being more careful. But when she surrenders her Death Note, she makes it clear she'll do anything he asks. Light asks why she's so willing to do all of this for him, and Remyu reveals that her family was killed by a burglar 3 years ago. The criminal was never convicted, but when she learned that Kira killed her family's murderer, she fell in love. After he hears her story, he agrees to work with her, but she makes one condition. She will be with L and use her death vision to find out his name, only if he promises to date her once per week. That's when the Death God warns Light that if anything happens to her, he'll be killed. Okay, one free girlfriend sounds like a pretty good deal, but we have to do this with caution, because if L still suspects us, then randomly introducing new people into our lives will look even more suspicious. Also, dating a TV star 2 days after her old girlfriend's funeral is not a good look. Personally, I would agree to meet with her once a week, only after orchestrating a plausible explanation for the relationship. First, I would use my position in the investigation to interview everyone at the TV station, and make sure that I met Misa here for the first time in front of L, where he could see her acting flirtatious. This way we have a reasonable cover to see each other without instantly arousing suspicion. But if we want full control over this situation, we can't stop there. This Death God is willing to kill us, which is against the rules. If she's this protective of her, we can manipulate her if we know she cares for Misa. I would respect the God's wishes for now, but look for a way to take advantage of our feelings for the girl later. Light here goes to school the next day, and is shocked to see L sitting behind him. The detective reveals that he knows the two Kiras have made contact, and plans to wear a mask to protect his identity. As they're leaving his class, he's taken aback when Misa here drops by, and surprises him. He introduces her to L, and she takes off his mask to see his true name over his head. But when the students recognize her, they start to crowd around Misa here, and she leaves the campus to get away from the fans. As they part ways, Light here calls Misa to find out the detective's true name, but L answers the call. He stole her phone, expecting Light to make contact, knowing this one action might save his life. He then tells Light that Misa is being arrested. They found evidence that she might be the second Kira, and Light will have to stay away from headquarters until they're done interrogating her. The police capture Misa and bring her back to the station to lock up in solitary confinement. L here is going to keep her in chains until he can prove that she's not the killer. Okay, this was his biggest mistake. If L is still suspicious of Light, then he has made himself vulnerable by working outside of the law, because if the public knew about this, it could shut their whole operation down. I would take full advantage of this and get evidence of his human rights violations and get it removed from the case. Since Light isn't allowed back at headquarters, I would write one of the other investigators' names into the death note, but before they die, have them plant additional cameras, record several days of interrogation, and bring them back to me. Now, we can only manipulate people if it ends in their death. and killing an investigator will be hard to do without arousing more suspicion. But statistically, the most common cause of death for police are job-related fatalities. With this in mind, I would kill this investigator in the pursuit of another criminal, and this plan will require 3 names in the death note. First, I would have to find a desperate gambler to be the victim. This person would draw $10,000 from his bank and waits in view of a CCTV camera. Then, my second victim will steal this man's cash in his car in front of the investigator and drive away. Lastly, I write that the investigator pursues the criminal in his police car, and after a dramatic chase, all 3 men die in a car crash. When the crime scene is discovered, both the crime and the chase will be recorded on the investigator's dash cam and CCTV footage. Nothing in this scenario requires Kira as an explanation, and as a result, we get video evidence of Elle torturing his suspects outside of the law. Elle holds Misa in solitary confinement for 5 days, but she still hasn't confessed. She then begs to be killed, but the police don't realize she's talking to her death god. Light gets visited by Rem here, who's convinced Misa to give up the death note. He learns that a Shinigami can't abandon its human unless the death note user dies or they give it up. Now Misa has lost all her memories associated with it, including Light's secret identity, but she will regain her memories if she touches the death note again. The death god reveals they made a promise to another death god that used to watch over Misa. He saw her the night she was going to be killed and wrote the stalker's name in the death note, killing him to save Misa's life. But he turned to ash for breaking the rule that a death god can only take life, not give it. Rem gave her the death note and fell in love with her, but she shouldn't have told this to Light, because with this new information, Light comes up with a plan to free her, and Rem is not going to like it. The next day, Light here tells the death god to find a new user for the death note, and buries his own copy in the forest. He then tells Ryuk here that if he says the code word to throw away, he will surrender his death note to wipe his own memory. Later, he goes back to the investigation's headquarters and tells them he could have a split personality and might be Kira without knowing it. He asks that they keep him under surveillance until Kira kills again. Okay, this is only part of Light's master plan, but now he can't use his death note and has no control over the situation. But if this was our best idea, I would go one step further and tell everyone we should also make sure Al isn't Kira, and that if I were to submit myself to observation, then he should do the same. If he refuses, it makes it look like he has something to hide, and if he agrees, then when no Kira murders are reported during this time in confinement, he will look just as suspicious. This gives us more freedom to control the situation, because Al will become a suspect of his own investigation, and he might have to recuse himself. It's been 12 days since they caught Misa here, and 7 days since Light turned himself in. The confinement becomes unbearable, and Light here finally gives up his death note and tells Ryuk the code phrase to wipe his memory. He passes out, but when he wakes up, he tells the team that he knows he's not Kira, and declares they will finally put a stop to the killing. But this was all a part of Light's plan. Later that night, the reporter Kiyomi is on her balcony when a death note lands next to her. She picks it up and sees the death god, who tells her that she's been given a special gift, and Rem will teach her how to use it. The reporter opens her death note and starts writing. Criminals from all over Japan start dropping dead, and in greater numbers than ever before. Meanwhile, the reporter Kiyomi has been proving herself at the news station for coverage of the murder spree, but the angry woman is jealous of the attention and lets her know it. But Kiyomi here doesn't take criticism well at all. On her way back home, she gets run over by a semi-truck and dies, leaving Kiyomi here as the new angry woman. At the investigation headquarters, Light and Misa have been let out of their cells, but are still being held here. He's no longer believed to be Kira, and the investigation team is looking for a new suspect, but he might have a clue. Light here has found evidence that this new Kira is a woman who is associated with Sakura TV, like their new anchor woman, Kiyomi. Arriving back home, Kiyomi here has no idea that her place has been bugged. The investigators watch her writing into a notebook, and when they get a closer look, discover the names of Kira's most recent victims, along with the names of criminals that are still alive. The only way to prove she's the killer is to let these people die, but Light here comes up with a plan for the investigators to catch the woman. Okay, this all seems very clever, but now the investigators know that this was done with supernatural powers, and that gives them a lot more to work with because their investigation is no longer bound by what is physically possible. With this knowledge, Elle still has a reason to suspect that Light could be involved somehow. Now we have to use a death note to mislead the investigation, so I would make several fake copies of the death note, write the names of my past kills inside them, spread them to several people throughout the city, and help with the investigation to those books. It will give them too many answers that don't add up, and in the meantime, I'll be able to get the original death note back while derailing the entire investigation. The next day, she receives a call from a man who reveals he has a recording of her using the death note and offers her the tape in exchange for 5 million yen. When she goes home, she finds secret cameras and microphones hidden around her unit as the police get confirmation that the criminals names she wrote down yesterday have died. They have their woman. Later that night, she finds out that the man has gone to her news station and plans on revealing her identity, and she has an hour and 25 minutes before she's exposed. She makes a deal with Rem to have the eyes of a death god so she can find this man's name and kill him. And with her new abilities, she goes to the TV station. She arrives at the set of the news broadcast and falls right into Light's trap. She's blinded by the lights and tackled to make sure she can't see their faces. Elle here reveals she had been watching a fake broadcast, and the police chief demands to know how she killed people. She tells him she writes the names in a notebook and dares him to try it. Elle touches the book and sees a death god for himself, but when Light takes it from the detective, all his memories come rushing back to him. His master plan has worked, and now he can finish what he started. He had Rem create a fake rule stating he must kill someone every 13 days, or else they die. Rem used this rule to trick Kiyomi to continue her killings while Light was being confined, making it clear that he wasn't Kira. Okay, now we've regained access to the Death Note and all of our memories. The problem is, everyone else knows about the Death God, but there's still a way to use this to our advantage here against Elle. If Rem has already done this much for us, we can also use her to lie, telling the investigators that Elle was the person who first possessed the Death Note. Then, I would have Ryu plant Light's original Death Note among Elle's personal items, making it look like he's the original Kira, and the reporter was the second. The other investigators might think Elle was trying to use the second Kira as a way to solve the case without revealing himself to be the killer, and they'll arrest him. The investigators realize the public won't believe the supernatural explanation, but Elle is adamant that if they prove how this works, they can get her executed. While the rest of the team is distracted, Light here uses a piece of paper from the Death Note he hid in his watch to kill Kiyomi and gain ownership of the book.
Sparkle cleans everyday messes, and it won't clean out your piggy bank.
The investigation team goes back to their headquarters and tries to figure out if she was killed by another Kira. Light brings attention to the last rule of the book, saying an owner must keep on writing a name every 13 days or else they die. Since both he and Misa were confined for much longer than that, they're both innocent. But when Elle asks Rem if the rules are all true, the Death God lies that they are. With that, the team drops their surveillance on the two suspects, and Light is allowed to continue helping the investigation. Later, Light tells Misa to go to the forest to retrieve the Death Note he buried. She finds it and digs it up, but when she takes it out of the bag, all of her lost memories come rushing back to her. Now she remembers what Light told her to do. She goes back home and tries to write down Elle's real name, but she can't remember what it was, having also lost the power to see people's names. She makes a deal with Ryuk to regain the Death God's eyes for another half of her life. Okay, this is a really bad deal. The average life expectancy of a Japanese woman is 84 years, and now that she's taken the deal twice, she'll die at the age of 21, which only gives her months to live. If it were me, I would give up on learning Elle's true name and kill him the good old-fashioned way. First, I'd write someone else's name in the Death Note, with the cause of death being that he sends a letter to Elle claiming that he has information on the real identity of Kira, and asks to meet to hand-deliver the evidence. When they meet, the man will shoot everyone at the scene, and although the Death Note will let us kill him this way, he will be severely wounded and hospitalized, which gives us a great opportunity to kill him when he's at his most vulnerable. The hospital will also require medical records, which must be found under Elle's true name, and we can still try using the Death Note if we can learn his identity this way. A week later, Kira has begun killing people again, and Elle faces Misa. The investigators decide to consult with the FBI to test if the 13-day rule is real and take the Death Note with them, leaving Elle and Light behind. The detective suspects that Misa still has the other Death Note and has sent his liaison to pick her up. She has no idea that she's being led right into Elle's trap. Rem knows she's in trouble and sacrifices herself by writing in the Death Note to save her as she turns to ash and the book burns to a crisp. Misa arrives at the headquarters when the liaison suddenly collapses from a heart attack and Elle here falls off his chair. He realizes Light's plan was to use the Death God against him and dies, knowing that he was right all along. Light has finally beaten his greatest opponent. Reuniting with Misa, he uses his Death Note to write his dad's name and specifies that the book is brought back before he dies. When his dad arrives, Light asks him to hand over the Death Note, but the man reveals that he doesn't have it and that he saw everything that his son did. The rest of the investigation team come out of hiding and surround them. They're both placed under arrest, and Light is shocked when he sees Elle is still alive. He outsmarted him by switching out Misa's Death Note for a fake one, but wrote his name in the real book and the exact day he would die. By doing this, Elle has guaranteed no one can kill him with another Death Note. He reveals that he switched Misa's Death Note after the killing started again, and the whole rule testing experiment was a trick. Light here tries to use the Death Note paper from his watch, but one of the cops shoots it off his wrist and puts a bullet in his leg. With only one option left, he begs Ryuk here to kill the entire investigation team. There's nothing they can do to stop the Death God from writing down a name, but Ryuk reveals that he wrote down Light's name in the Death Note, and matter how hard he begs, his fate can't be changed, and Light finally dies. L decides to burn the remaining death notes and resigns himself to his impending death. A year later, Misa has forgotten her memories of the death note, but still remembers to celebrate Light's birthday. As Ryuko flies around Tokyo, looking for his next Kira. But what do you think? How would you beat Death Note 2? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day. I've never seen anything like this. Trapped in a giant cube and forced to compete to the death in twisted children's games, this movie has zero chill. Putting your strength, intelligence, and sanity to the test with a trick around every corner, what do you do? This one will have you reasoning with utter madness, as I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the twisted games in As the Gods Will. It's a normal school day, until the teacher's head explodes into bloody marbles, and a Japanese Daruma doll pops out of his stone, telling the class he wants to play a game. Daruma dolls are a common symbol for good luck in Japan, but it's safe to say this one isn't the lucky kind. This Daruma doll here starts the game and turns around as these two kids run for the exit, and their heads explode into marbles too. This particular death game is way too bloody for YouTube, so every time you see these here, someone's head just exploded. You'll have to use a little bit of imagination. The doll tells them the rules of the game. This is red light, green light, the nightmare version. Usually this is just a children's game where you have to sneak up on the leader in the front and tag them before they turn around and see you. But in this version, they have to push the button in the back of the doll without being seen before time runs out. And if he turns around and sees you moving, your head will explode. Okay, this is fucking insane. But if you're only thinking about why this is happening, you're going to lose the game. We need to be thinking about how to keep our heads and beat this thing before the time runs out. If we're afraid to move around when he's not looking, we need to maximize this time to gather information and develop a team strategy as much as possible. This hero tries to rush forward to push the button, but doesn't make it in time, as the Daruma doll turns his head and catches it moving. Being a hero won't work here, but if we move as a group and each take one step at a time in unison, our chances of survival increase. Some people will mess up, but with each step, we'll get closer to achieving the goal. Next, we can block his sight. Once we're all closer, I toss my jacket over its head, aiming to cover the doll's eyes just as it turns around. You would then have a better chance of touching the button without getting killed. In a situation like this, every piece of information is useful for survival, and we need to think about what this doll's limitations are. He has no neck, so even if he can turn himself around, he doesn't appear to have the physical ability to look downwards beyond his peripheral vision. So if it's me, I'd consider crawling on the floor and sneaking up to him from below the desk. If I can hide below his eye level until he turns around again, I could quickly reach the button without getting caught. Now, I wouldn't actually do this myself, because it's way too risky, but I would advertise it to my schoolmates as a strategy and encourage others to test the idea. There's only 2 people left standing with 35 seconds remaining, but the kid's friend has an idea. He tells Shun here to use him as a springboard to vault over all these dead bodies, and with less than 10 seconds left, the kid rushes forward. He jumps off his friend's back and makes it to the Daruma doll, pressing the button with 1 second remaining. What a badass way to win the game, but there's no time to celebrate, because this kid's head explodes, and we learn a simple fact. In this case, there can only be one winner. The Daruma doll explains that the student who presses the button is the only one who gets to live, and then warns him that he's a mouse and that the cat is coming.
Depression makes the week feel like 7 Mondays. Multiple symptoms? Let's rethink this. So your doctor tells you about Trintellix, a prescription medicine for adults with a type of depression called major depressive disorder. Feeling this overall relief. Plus, Trintellix had no significant impact on weight in clinical trials.
Trintellix may increase suicidal thoughts and actions in people 24 and younger. Call a doctor right away if you have these or new or worsening depression, or new or sudden changes in mood, behavior, thoughts, or feelings. Do not take with MAOIs. Tell your doctor about all medicines you take to avoid a life-threatening condition. Increased risk of bleeding may occur, especially if taken with aspirin, NSAID, pain relievers, or blood thinners. Manic episodes, eye problems, low sodium levels, and sexual problems can occur. Suddenly stopping Trintellix may cause serious side effects. Common side effects include nausea, constipation, and vomiting. Some reports of weight gain have been received since product approval.
Feeling better, even on laundry day.
Ask your doctor about Trintellix.
This means that there are more horrifying games we have to go through, and we can't relax now. Considering all these dead students saved my life by making enough mistakes for me to learn from, I'm looking for other students from the other classes to try banding together. The more bodies there are between me and the next death game, the lower the probability that I'm dying right away, and I can figure out how to keep myself alive. That's when the kid's childhood friend Ichika opens the door. He finds out that she was in a Daruma doll game of her own, and she won just like him. He uses his momentary freedom to call the police, but finds out he's not in a service area. Okay, this is the time to find a way out and to plan ahead. I would take this opportunity to explore all escape options. Even if we find out there's no way to escape, we can focus on beating the games. It's clear that other games are coming, as the Daruma doll said, so I'm going to take my time carefully investigating my surroundings and gathering useful resources for whatever might come next. Things to throw like pencil cases, rulers, scissors, or even textbooks. They continue running until they reach the gymnasium, where they see a bunch of other students wearing mice costumes. The door suddenly shuts itself behind them, and now they're locked in. This is their next game, and as the writing on the floor explains, the objective is to put a belt on a cat. The class president orders them to put on the mice costumes, but they don't, and this hesitation will pay off later. The floor opens up, and a giant Anaki Neko statue rises up. This is yet another symbol of good luck in Japan that's going to bring the students the exact opposite. The goal, to put the giant belt on the cat's basket collar without getting eaten. Okay, whoever designed these challenges are complete psychopaths. We're told to get into a mouse costume, and personally I would wish to put one on because I'd be scared of punishment for not following the rules. But immediately it means a mouse, but no still in their school uniforms were left alone. So there's more to this than it seems. As long as there are mice to chase, it's applying to the students who are still wearing uniforms. If the mice costumes are optional, then this must be considered a variable in our strategy to defeat it. So I would take off my mouse costume immediately and take a step back to safely assess the pieces of the game. This collar is about 20 feet high, double the height of a regular basketball hoop. Unless you're doing perfect and nailing impossible shots, the likelihood of a regular student getting the shot off is extremely low, and it would take too many attempts to even consider as a viable option. With the cat running us over and swiping at us, it's too dangerous to make multiple attempts to throw the bell in its face. It also has a string along its back that could be grabbed if we ran up it. My solution is to climb it for a dunk or a layup. Whenever it eats a mouse, it pauses, and that's our best chance at this. You wrap the bell in your shirt and tie around your back like a sling. Then when a classmate gets eaten, climb up the cat with the bell in the sling, and work your way around the collar to go in for the dunk. One of the students is the basketball team's MVP, and has the girl pass the bell over to him. The shooter makes the free throw, but the bell is caught by the cat, who throws it right back at the basketball player. They just lost their MVP, and now it can use its hands. Things just got way worse. They realize the cat is only eating mice, and they finally take off their mouse costumes, putting an end to the most dangerous cosplay event ever. But with no more mice to eat, it starts going for humans. Now this is where we need to get a little creative with our teamwork. If there's too many mice, more people will be eaten. And if the cat has only one mouse to chase, you're stuck in a mouse costume with the undivided attention of a giant king cat. I would make everyone wear only the mouse legs and fold the top of the costume down. That way everyone can rotate wearing the mouse costume depending on where the cat is in the room. And when it needs to be distracted somewhere else, by simply throwing on the top of the costume like a jacket, we can effectively appear and disappear to the cat as needed. Work together to get the bell in the basket and avoid getting eaten. Shug here takes one for the team and puts on a mouse costume, and after getting seriously cat-handled, he realizes he can hear it complain about its itchy back. He finds out so long as he's wearing this hood, he can understand what it's saying. I didn't expect this, but we can't be too surprised. A cat that likes mice, of course, likes to be scratched, and probably also likes catnip, tearing couch sofas, and lets itself inappropriately in front of guests. We need to think of this thing not just as a monster, but with everything we know about cat behavior. They also love chasing lights and lasers, and if any one of them had a laser pointer, they could distract the cat away from the mice. Now that's obviously a joke, but if you're not doing everything you can to use what you know against this thing to keep yourself alive, then you're already losing the game. He climbs up the cat and begins to scratch its back. With the help of the other students, they all work together until it finally goes to sleep. Shun here is about to put an end to this game, but one of the students questions if there can only be one winner, like the first game. This is a valid point, but there's enough objective logic here to infer the answer. In the children's game, red light, green light, there can only be one winner, whoever reaches the end first, and everyone else is eliminated from the game. Basketball, however, is a team sport, and when one person scores, the team benefits. This is enough to convince me to surrender the shot to someone with more skill. If someone was insistent on shooting and skilled enough to take the shot, I'd put my ego aside and let them have the bell. We don't have time to argue, and it's important to get the job done quickly without interference. Their argument for shooting privileges wakes up the cat who rips two students apart. They don't have time to put it back to sleep, but Shun has another idea. Grabbing the basketball and some spare mice costumes, he and his friend disguise the belt as a basketball. Since he knows the camera hasn't seen something before it acts, they can confuse the cat and maybe get at least one shot up before time runs out. In a high-pressure situation, this is really good thinking. He's been paying attention to the cat's behavior, knows its weakness, and is perfectly exploiting it. But he made one mistake. If I'd seen this room before, I would have used it more strategically during the game. We can run inside for cover as a mouse and come out safely as a student. There also might have been more basketballs in there to shoot and distract the cat with. The girl takes a shot, but the cat smacks it away, giving the boy the chance to shoot the bell. But it bounces right off the rim, and there's not enough time to try again. Right at the last second, this student jumps over the cat's head and slams it into the hoop. Game over.
Lift power. George Norman.
But the killing continues as the hero of the hour starts killing the other students, believing they don't deserve to live because they're brainless losers. Okay, this guy is a psychopath, but he's also not wrong. Unfortunately, I'm not trusting him in a game because he's blinded by fanaticism instead of survival and the greater good. Killing them off serves us no purpose. The more expendable people that are in the games, the more we can benefit from their deaths. Every game will require a certain amount of mistakes to learn how to play them, and these kinds of people are perfect for that. Let them make the mistakes, we study the game's response, and then use that information to beat it. Then the cat blows sleeping gas at them, knocking them out. When Shug here wakes up, he finds himself in a room with an old classmate and some strangers. All 4 students have survived 2 games, the Daruma and the cat game. This guy activates a device, and the group finds out they're trapped in a giant floating cube with no way for anyone to break in and save them. The government and military are powerless. Someone knocks on the door, and these 4 Kokeshi dolls enter the room. They're here to play Kagome Kagome, a game where the player wears a blindfold while the Kokeshi dolls sing as they circle around him, and you must guess who's behind him when the music stops. This guy guesses it correctly and gets a laser to the head, and the dolls take control of his body and start bashing his head against the floor. Then this girl goes after him, but she can't figure out who it is either. He gets ripped in half from the legs up. Okay, this one is tricky, because the premise leads you to assume it's a game of chance, like Russian roulette for children. So the strategy here is to eliminate as much chance out of the equation as possible. And we do this by gathering as much information as we can from every sense of perception we have available to us, and then using them to cheat the game. We can try to observe their starting order before putting the blindfold on. If we can confirm they form a circle in a specific gender pattern, our chances already improve. Next, we use our ears to track them by distinguishing the male voices from the female voices. If we know the pattern and locate a male's voice as it circles, it tells us the gender that is behind us when the music stops. Now all that's left is to determine which member of the gender it is. And now comes the cheating part of the strategy. Before I put the blindfold on, I would assign a number of taps for each doll. 1 tap for this one, and 4 taps for this one. When the doll stops singing, the other student in the room can tap the number for the doll and hopefully not get ripped apart for where the sun don't shine. When it's Shun's turn to play, he can't figure out who's behind him. They hear a doll tell him he's out of time, and another doll repeats it. This was all part of his plan. Realizing who just spoke, he deduces correctly which one is behind him. He tricked this doll by playing a recording of one of them is saying you're out of time, baiting her into speaking and revealing the order of their positions around him. All the dolls explode into dust, and one of them drops the key they need to move to the next stage. The 2 survivors walk out of the room and see this guy come running at them, asking to hold their hand. Behind him, another doll is chasing them, and they all grab hands just in time. The monster doll inspects them, but leaves when it sees they're all linked together. Ichika comes running around the corner, and Shun manages to save her from the hand-holding monster just in time. They meet some other students as well, and discover that to beat this game, they need 7 students to turn 7 keys at the exact same time. They don't have enough of either until that killer student from the cat game appears and has brought exactly what they need, with an extra person to spare. And to no one's surprise, he eliminates him without remorse. Once again, foolish. I would use this extra kid as a lookout for the hand-holding doll, because we will need to stop holding hands in order to turn the keys. And if the hand-holding doll catches us unlinked, we might not be able to turn the keys in time. Everything is a resource here, and this guy is wasting them. I would confront him that this is a poor strategy, and that we can let the game kill him later. But he did just save our lives for the second time, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much. They all turn the keys at the same time, beating this game with 12 seconds left on the clock. Meanwhile, the cube is live streaming their victory, as everyone gathers in Julia Square to watch and cheer for them. The group go through and find themselves in a hot spring, except everything is frozen over. As soon as I see this environment, I'm staying against the walls. This looks like a lake that's frozen over, and I'm not leaving myself vulnerable to any traps without reason. I'm getting a head start on the game and encouraging the others to do the same. Suddenly, a giant polar bear comes surfing in and tells them that in this game, everyone will be asked a question that they need to answer truthfully. If they don't, they must choose someone to be killed. Okay, this sounds too easy to be true, and I'm not relaxing here. The real game is something hidden beneath the surface. We have to find out what's the trick. There's no incentive for anyone to lie, but surely they won't let us all pass through. I'm starting this one off by choosing not to trust a single word this polar bear says, expecting traps of double meaning, insinuation, or metaphor. We can't think literally, even when we're trapped in a giant cube and talking to a giant polar bear. The first question asked is, what is your favorite food? Which they all answer easily, but the bear suddenly freaks out because someone told a lie and threatens to kill them if they don't identify the liar in 2 minutes. The players decide that this guy must be it because his favorite food is parsley, and the bear crushes him to death. Now, I'm a classic overanalyzer, so this one would honestly scare the living shit out of me. The answer to this question is deceptively complicated because it's based on a general opinion and not objectively true. If I've had different favorite foods throughout the years, or a favorite in each food category, and if I change my mind after trying new dishes, how could I have one true answer to this question? So therefore, how could the polar bear know what the truth is if I myself do not? And this revelation is how we beat the game. If I don't know the truth, then neither does the polar bear. And none of us have any reason to lie. So when the polar bear says he knows someone is lying, that statement itself is a lie, and I would accuse him as a secret liar to beat the game. The bear tells them there's an imposter in the group who's intentionally lying to get them killed. This student realizes that everyone goes to the same school except for this girl, so she must be the imposter, and the polar bear stomps her flat. Now that's what I call a high school crush.
Confession is definitely good for the soul. You never seen it like this. Fame, drugs, my life hasn't been easy, but I finally found happiness. Biography, Bobby Brown, premieres Monday at 8, only on A&E.
Inspired Knowledge Charter Schools is looking for amazing teachers who are innovative, flexible, reflective, and committed to the students of New Orleans. At Inspired Nova, we are more than coworkers. We are a family. Our staff is our #1 asset. We offer a supportive work environment where teachers are given the skills and tools they need to succeed.
bounce off, revealing his true identity underneath. The group is taken to their new arena where these Matryoshka dolls appear, announcing this will be the final game. Kick the can. The rules are simple. Whoever is it must take the can and place it in this circle. Then try to capture the others by looking at their face, call out their name, and step on the can. Those captured can be freed if another player kicks the can, but the kicker must sacrifice his life because the can will explode. The game ends if the players avoid being captured, while the one who's in wins by capturing at least 3 players by the time the sun sets. Then they draw sticks to decide their roles, and the psychotic student is it. Everyone runs before the student kicks one of the dolls into the air, knocking the can to the ground, and places it at the designated spot. Okay, hold on a second. Didn't they say that can would explode if it was kicked? This might mean it's not triggered by impact. It could be one of the game's tricks if we need to kick the can to save someone later. But more importantly, if I was it, I need to manage my time wisely, because finding people will be very time consuming, and I need to know how much time I have. The setting sun is too abstract, and I need to convert that into minutes. The best way to do this is to hold your fingers horizontally against the sky, in between the horizon and the sun. Each finger that fits in between the sun and the earth is approximately 15 minutes. The 2 boys try to hide as far away as possible, but the psycho student finds them first and beats them into submission. That's 2 down, 2 to go. Now, finding people who have already hit it will waste a lot of time. By retrieving the can first, you're giving everyone too much time. If it were me, I would skip the can and quietly follow them to their hiding spots first. Once someone's find a good hiding spot, it's unlikely they would move from it. And if I know where they're hiding, I can go retrieve the can and come back to their hiding spot and catch them. I would also prioritize who I should put in prison. The best person to follow is Shun, because he's going to hide with the girl. That way, I am more likely to catch 2 people at once. Shun has proven himself to think quickly on his feet and be heroic, while the other 2 are more cowardly. So if Shun here is locked up first, it's very unlikely anybody will be coming to save him. And as long as I get 3 captured, I win the game. There's only 2 players left. The psycho kid spots them and runs up the stairs. Shun escapes as the girl goes off to block the entrance, but he breaks through and captures her. Shun here is stuck trying to figure out what to do, as he's going to lose if he doesn't free the prisoners. Now, Shun's team did not strategize as well, but honestly, they have the best chance of surviving from the start. He has to see your face and call your name to capture you. By eliminating either of these 2 as a possibility, you can work the game to your advantage. So I would have covered my face with my jacket so he can't legally capture me as a prisoner. I would tell everyone to do this, no matter how much you're punched, kicked, or beaten. If you don't show your face, it will become impossible for him to win. Then there's no need for anyone to kick the can and sacrifice themselves, because no prisoners will be taken. This is the best possible outcome. If someone does get caught, we can remove another win condition from him. When he's out finding people to capture, I would stay nearby to move the can and hide it. Even if he sees her face and says her name, you're not officially captured until he steps on the can. If they had thought about this from the beginning, they wouldn't be in this hopeless situation. But then Shun here sees this old suit of armor nearby, and he gets a clever idea. He leaves his hiding place dressed in rusty armor that can give you tetanus just by looking at it. This is clever. One of the rules for being captured requires clear eye contact between a player and the person who is it. The helmet not only makes it harder, but the entire armor set might protect him from the explosion if he kicks the can. He's covered 2 weaknesses that gives him the advantage he needs to beat this game, but it's too hard to move, and there's no way he can fight the student. He backs away to the edge and gets caught, but this was a part of his plan. He chains the psycho and throws himself off the wall, dragging the other boy along with him. As the student is busy trying to pull the armor up, he's escaped and climbed back over, runs for the can. He kicks it, but it doesn't explode. His team wins, and the dolls reveal that they lied about the explosion. Now that it's all over, all the players are given popsicles as a reward. But the girl finishes her ice cream and realizes that these popsicle sticks declare he to die, and this was the secret final test. They only get the pass if luck is on their side. The unlucky players evaporate into magic powder, and the 2 winners are transported to the top of the white cube as people below celebrate their survival.
But what do you think? How would you beat As the Gods Will? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. And check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you. You're as under pressure.
Died a horrible death and came back to life, what would you do? You've returned from beyond the grave and will be forced to hunt horrifying aliens in countless death games, and you can't escape. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the death games in Gantz. This kid here has no idea that he is about to die. Kay over here is just another Japanese youngster hoping to find a job. When down in the subway, he notices someone familiar. The distance. In between the crowds, Kay notices this kid Kato, an old school friend he hasn't seen in years. And he and Kato wait for the incoming train. Little do they both know that this train will be the death of both of them. Suddenly, someone near Kato collapses onto the train tracks, and goody two-shoes Kato rushes down like a knight in shining armor to save him. But he can't get up, and the train is coming. Kay looks on in sheer awkwardness as he tries to avoid being spotted, but tough shit, cause Kato then spots Kay, prompting an awkward staring contest for a few seconds as he watches Kato save this man from certain death. But then, the roaring engine of Japan's metro comes charging down the tracks, and Kato can't get up. So Kay quickly goes to help poor Kato, but in the process gets dragged down by accident onto the tracks until both of their lips meet to kiss the train dead. Okay, this was a brutal mistake. These kids waited around for too long, and that's what got them killed. Considering that they're standing on train tracks, they should be actively trying to escape as soon as possible instead of sitting around and talking about what to do. Their very first mistake was not realizing that there's an emergency compartment hidden under the tracks of every train station in the city of Tokyo. Even if they were unable to climb because of how difficult it is to get up, we can clearly see that there's a small gap that two people could fit in right to the side of them. Look, it's understandable that they might be freaking the hell out because of this high-speed train coming towards them, but let's stay calm, folks. We need to stay alive. Tokyo has a high rate of train-related deaths in the past few decades. Because of this, safety measures have been enhanced by the metropolitan authorities to make sure these incidents become a few and far between thing. However, there is another way that we could escape this situation relatively unscathed, if we're willing to sacrifice our new old friend here. Since he brought me into this situation, I would quickly try to convince him to let me use him as a human trampoline to push me up into the air and over the train ledge. Now, whether or not our friend here is going to survive is a tricky question, but that's not our problem anymore, now is it? Kay and Kato suddenly wake up to find themselves in a barren room, washed over by the white lights of this seemingly nefarious apartment. And they're not alone. And in front of them sits other confused and terrified individuals who also don't know how they got there. The two boys then turn around to find an unknown black sphere in the middle of the room. They then investigate the rest of the apartment to find themselves trapped inside with all the doors and windows locked. Kay and Kato try and piece the puzzle together, and they realize that they aren't the only ones who seemingly just died, because everyone else in this room came here after suddenly dying in random ways, and no one knows anything. Just then, this black sphere interrupts everyone by emitting what appears to be the body of a young girl as she seemingly fizzles into existence out of thin air, and she plops right onto Kay's lap, freaking him the hell out, and not in a good way.
Looking to sell a ride? Sell happy with Acceleride. The easy way to sell your ride online. It's simple. We want to buy your ride. Any year, any make, any model. Just click on the Sell a Ride button. Give us some basic information. Submit your photos and receive a cash offer for your ride. Yep, it's that easy. Then, once you review and accept the cash offer, get paid in minutes through Zelle. Happy selling. Acceleride. Buy, sell, be happy.
The room joins in on the puzzled reactions as this girl wakes up, and we find out her name is Kishimoto. But just then, a sinister anthem begins to roar within the black sphere, captivating everyone in the room. Digital text then begins to appear on the sphere that reads to everyone in this room that their old lives are gone, and that this strange black orb will decide how to use their new lives. And then it begins to display a horrifying image of a strange beast that this sphere wants them to go kill. Right before its interior pops open, displaying an array of high-tech weaponry, along with a strange, sleeping man inside the sphere itself. And inside, along with all of this, cases containing suits with all of their names on it. And so the group with more questions than answers begins suiting up, and Kate notices that this one kid, Creepy Face, is seemingly already suited up, and seems way more calm than the rest of the group here. But he doesn't have time to dwell on it because this guy starts fizzling out of existence and the rest of the gang begins freaking out one by one, following this guy's lead as they all disappear from existence right into this random alley. However, this creepy-haired kid finally spills the beans and tells everyone that they all got here through hypnosis and that he's the son of the producer of this holographic TV show that they're all in, saying that if they complete the mission, they'll all win 100 million yen as a reward. But something is off, and Kane doesn't trust him for 1 second. Okay, something isn't right here. There's no way that this creepy-faced kid, what he's saying is true. Because up until now, the only VR-type technology out there for public use has been through holographic capabilities represented through modern AR. What we saw with Princess Leia as a holograph back in Star Wars is largely something out of the realm of modern science still. Which means there's no way that humans can produce the perception of holograms in standard non-modified atmospheric air without the presence of some type of headset. Even the famous hologram of Tupac Shakur on stage was in fact not a hologram, but was actually a 2D image projected onto an angled piece of glass, which was then projected onto a transparent screen along with the help of a projector. The point is that we're out in the open and we ain't wearing no Google glasses, which means there's no possible way that this creepy-faced kid, what he's saying is in fact true. But let's say that it was. Then that means whoever put us in this virtual reality clearly has the technological and financial capabilities to put us in a virtual world where we cannot trust our own senses, and that is terrifying. The one thing that we can take away from all of this is creepy-faced kid himself, because when we arrived into that room, he was the only one who was already suited up, and the only one who had any explanation at all as to what was going on. And he's the only one who exhibited the confidence to spew that lie. If this really was a competitive match with 100 million yen on the line, then why would he give away the objective willy-nilly? Why would he say anything at all? Saying nothing would have given him a better shot at winning the money, right? Something is going on with creepy-faced kid because he seems to know something that we don't. Which is why I would keep a close eye on him and his actions, because us looking out for him actually means that we are looking after ourselves in the process. The group of lost players then noticed something strange in the distance watching them. Something green and not quite human, and also holding a green onion. Creepy-faced kid then points out that that little green abomination is the target, and that whoever catches it within 20 minutes wins, causing the entire group of money-hungry players to hunt down their target. The group catches up to this strange green alien, and it begins to offer its green onion to the group. But they don't give two shits about no green onions, as they lick their lips in anticipation while they prepare to kill this creature. But suddenly, this sneaky green little bastard slips away right over the fence as he jumps over this fence like a superhuman, forcing the gang to continue the chase, following him down the street, right past our unbothered main heroes, and right into this dingy garage. The group of players have finally managed to corner this green onion, knowing that their actions within the next few minutes will change their lives and their fate forever. The green onion head of an alien begs to be spared as it offers its green onions again as a token of friendship, but it's no use. These players want blood, and they ready their arcade-looking weaponry with no idea how it works, and this dude takes a shot and nothing. The gang wonders if their weapons are broken, but then suddenly an explosion erupts from within the green alien as his entire arm is blasted off of his body, angering this little green alien and making it dangerously handsy with our players, causing the group to get pissed off as this time they all fire simultaneously at this monster, causing its body to savagely get blasted apart as its guts spray all over the entire room. And this guy, this sicko, he likes what he sees and fires another shot before Kato angrily tries to stop it. But suddenly their problems get about 7 feet bigger because right behind them is another alien. And this one looks like the Green Onion's older brother, and he looks pissed. The money-hungry gang of idiots stand in front of it paralyzed as hell, and this terrifying monster towers over our unlucky players as they prepare to battle or die. But this Yakuza wannabe is too much of a stud to give a shit and decides to confront this beast head-on. Suddenly he hears a swift crack erupt from below him, and he looks down to his leg in sheer horror. Shock quickly sets in for our gangster stud as he collapses in front of this monster, right as the beast grabs his skull and lifts him up into the air. The group begins to freak out right as they blast off a couple of rounds at this horrifying monster, but they can't land a single shot, as this creature uses Yakuza stud as a meat shield, blocking all of the shots with terrifying ease. Okay, this is terrifying, but in all fairness, they should have seen the signs if we follow the fact that these these matches categorize themselves as games, and that means that these death games would likely follow some semblance of game structure, such as the inclusion of boss battles, found within almost all types of games in various genres, with the structure of boss battles usually being found at the end of each sector, just as when the intensity within the game rises to its peak, followed by the defeat of the boss, at which the intensity will usually die down for a bit. After hunting the little green onion alien, it was clearly an easy enemy to defeat, and it's no wonder that the first enemy for the first game for our players was the easiest one, meaning that the gang could have stopped to maybe think about this for a minute, that this was a game. How many enemies would they have to hunt before the difficulty went up? And how many enemies would they have to hunt within the first game before harder, more terrifying enemies show up? This is why I would have stopped and maybe would have tried to capture the little green onion and then figure out our next step. And I wouldn't have been as hasty as they were. And from the looks of his cute little sweet weird face, this little green onion baby was clearly a child, which means that it's safe to say that what we're up against now would be the parent or at least a really pissed off older relative of our now deceased onion friend. Because what the gang is up against now is a more mature green onion alien, and from what we have just witnessed, this creature has the ability to produce razor-sharp claws from his hands that can obviously maim and kill people right here on the spot. And this creature's offensive abilities means that we're better off fighting him in an open space and not within an enclosed area such as this one. This thing is currently carrying one of the other players and using him as a freaking meat shield of sorts, and that's awesome, which means that we have no way of stopping him right here. So if I'm K, I'd simply use Glasses Guy in front of me as my own shield of meat and push him right at this angry green onion creature as a distraction before running behind him and out of the garage entirely. Once out in the open, we'll have a better shot at killing him without having to be so ridiculously close to his claws. And besides, this guy has shown himself to be a rather physically weak individual. So I say for the greater good, he should do the noble cause of sacrificing himself for us. Right? His death is the best bet in getting out of here alive. The Yakuza wannabe guy suddenly explodes, sending his tender organs everywhere. This alien monster is out for blood, and everyone here is about to die a brutal death, and they know it. Elsewhere, Kay walks nearby as he hears the screams of petrified victims, causing him to check out the same garage as our alien friend, just as a blood-covered Kato stands there, practically shitting bricks. Corpses of some of the players encircle this green demon as it slowly pushes them out into the alley, ready to spill more blood. But then, in comes Kishimoto flying wild and taking shots, whipping this horrifying monster right into the concrete slab nearby. But she ain't prepared for shit, as her corner eye notices the corpse-filled garage in front of her, along with the paralyzed and stricken Kato. Just then, this green beast rises back up, taking sudden swings at Kishimoto and Kay, making Kishimoto realize that her suit protected her, and making Kay realize that the suit is the key to surviving. Kay whips the green monster on the head to no effect, pissing off our alien friend who roars just as Kay prepares to die himself. Though suddenly the snapping and whipping of an alien round pierces through the air and ties up our alien friend, right as Creepy Face Guy fizzles into existence thanks to his invisibility suit. Looks like that little shit was hiding and watching the whole time. Creepy Face Kid then offers for Kay to kill this captured monster, but he's too much of a goody two-shoes to take the shot and chokes, forcing Creepy Face Kid to handle it himself, and he shoots this beast right in front of him, causing the game to suddenly end, and the group appears back in the same room as before. And there, Creepy Face Kid divulges the name of the mysterious black sphere, Gantz. Just then, this Glasses Guy comes back to join the group, showing us that no matter how far on the brink of death someone is, if they survive the round, they'll come back fully healed after the game ends. Gantz then relays score points for everybody on the screen as Kay demands to know what is going on, forcing Creepy Face Kid to reveal that they're here to stop an alien invasion from attacking Earth, and that except for him, this is the first time that he's seen anyone survive more than a single round within Gantz. And this news freaks Kay out, who picks up his pistol and directs it right at Creepy Kid's sweet face, before Kay suddenly is teleported back to his room, almost as if it were a dream. Holy crap, this is insane. But here's the thing, we don't know if what just happened was real, because like I said, technology up until this point that we know of has not developed tech with the capabilities to make everything around us into a perfect realistic Star Trek holodeck. And to add to that, we just woke up in our bed with no memory of how we got here, nor do we remember how we got to that empty room either. So really, we're at a loss for words, and throw in aliens into the mix, which means there's a pretty good chance that whatever happened was just a terrifying dream. But here's the thing, this wasn't any old dream, because we saw a long-lost friend from school who we haven't seen in years, which is why, to be safe, I would follow up on all possible leads, just on the off chance that whatever happened really did happen. Because how many times have we heard of alien encounters in the news? Since this stuff started being reported back in the 60s, a lot, which means statistically it's not crazy to think that we could be one of the few people who's just experienced an alien encounter. Now, if this is the case, then our only chance of finding out what's going on will be making sure our timeline within the last 24 hours matches that of the people within the game, if we can find them in real life. Because if we can find even one of our teammates, this will clear up everything in minutes, because they'll either think we're nuts, or will probably give us a hug and be glad that someone else actually believes their crazy alien hunting story. In this instance, we have our long-lost friend Kato, who Kay mentioned that they went to the same school together. So in this case, I would start there, begin by finding him either through the school directory or by going online and using social media to identify the locations of his hangouts. And all of this will give us a better shot at finding him before the next game starts, if we start looking right now. Kay wakes up confused as all hell, not knowing what in the world just happened. But he knows someone who might have some answers. His old buddy, Kato, forcing Kay to comb through the Japanese phone books looking for his long-lost friend and his address. Finding the winning ticket, Kay rushes out, hoping that whatever is going on has ended for good. Kay later reaches Kato's old address, but realizes that nothing is there. Then again, Kato's address is from 10 years ago, making Kay to be even more stumped and lost for answers than ever, forcing him to head back home in idiotic shame. But on the way there, he passes by an alley and notices something horrifying. It's the same alley from last night, and the same dingy garage from before, except its blood-stained walls are nowhere to be seen, which means that whatever happened last night could have been real. But Kay's crush sure as shit is real, as he bumps into her right then and there, and he spots her Gantz suit showing from her bag, along with Kato's jacket that she wore back in Gantz, making it even harder to ignore that what happened last night was real. But with no blood-stained walls and no Kato, the gang disappointedly calls it a day, and Kay prepares to walk Kishimoto home like a gentleman. Right. But Kishimoto then asks the most horrifying thing ever. Most horrifyingly awesome thing ever, that is. As she asks Kay if she can stay with him tonight, as she has no place to live, thanks to an angry ex-boyfriend who just kicked her out, making his lost Kay's gain as he tries to play it cool. And the duo heads back to his apartment, where some very expected G-rated action happens, as in nothing happens, as in Kishimoto steals Kay's bed before the tired and confused duo pass out in awkward silence. Bummer. But on the other side of town, Kato wakes up from a nightmare, just before telling his little brother to head back to bed, not realizing that whatever happened to him and the others is about to happen again, because just then half of his face begins disappearing just as before, with his body fizzling back out, and right back into the same room as everyone else, right into the room with Gantz, as Kay, Kato, and Kishimoto look on in sheer terror at each other and all of the newcomers in the room, including a kid, his grandma, glasses guy, and some other random people looking just as confused as Kay and Kato were when they first died, along with creepy face kid in the background looking just as predatory as ever. Oh.
There are more ways to PayPal.
There are more ways for me to break up purchases with Pay it 4.
There are more ways for you to explore crypto in the company.
Okay, this confirms the fact that this is in fact happening, folks, and that this is not a trick, which means we are screwed. And judging from the last time, we have less than 4 minutes until we get teleported into the next horrifying death game. But this time we're not the confused ones, because we have this dude, a grandma, her kid. I mean, we have some real mid-shield options. But let's be honest, creepy kid won't tell on us, and he's really the only one from the first game who knows what's going on. Which means for now, he's on the same side as us, and the new people in this room don't look too smart either. Suckers. So I would pull a page right out of this bastard's book and tell the rest of the players that we're in a holographic game funded by neuroscientists to test out the concept of fear using high-tech implanted chips, and that whatever we're about to see within the game isn't real. Whatever pain we experience isn't real. However real it might feel. Remember, I don't think these people are that smart, so this flat-out lie I think should be just enough to do its job. The fact is that we can use these people's gullibility, I'm looking at this grandma, to our advantage and make them act as our unofficial meat shields that I talked about earlier. once the game begins. I'd also begin to keep these people distracted and keep our Gansus tucked inside our briefcases until the game begins. This way, when we put our suits on, the other people won't have a suit to worry about, since they won't have one. Because we need these noobs powerless and dependent on us. Because the last thing we need for them is to get pissed off at us and start taking superhuman potshots at us in their Gans suits. Because screw that idea, I don't like it. Creepy face kid then sadistically says that no matter where they are in the world, Gans will always find them and bring them back to play more death games. The gang looks in sheer horror, while one by one they begin to disappear, and Kay and Kato quickly try to arm the rest of the group, while this drama and Kid get separated upon arrival into this death arena, and end up bumping into this horrifying robotic alien, and it walks right up to these innocent folks and opens its mouth, revealing a bright light from within as it prepares to murder them right here and now, all the while this innocent child and sweet old lady look on in sheer hopelessness. Nearby, Kay finally appears into the arena parking lot, but comes face to face with something straight out of a horror film. It's the grandma and boy, or their corpses, who lay there like abandoned ragdolls, dead on the street. It's horrifying. Just then, he sees the infamous murder creature standing opposite of him, ready for a showdown to the death. Standing opposite of Kay is his next target, the Tanaka alien. Okay, I guess they made this monster different than the one in the anime, which we also did a video on, which you can check out up in the corner here. But this robot in the anime is actually a suit that houses the most insane thing ever inside, a bird. As in an actual alien bird known as the Tanaka alien, a race of freakishly huge birds that use that suit in front of us right here as some sort of a spacesuit to be able to breathe inside Earth's atmosphere. Like no joke, there's an actual bird inside of that robot, people. Well, I'm not kidding. And while this dude looks a little different than in the anime, I'm willing to bet that his suit works pretty much the same way. And this type of info is invaluable to us because this means that without their suit, they're screwed. However, their main attack is a high-pitched supersonic blast emitted from their mouth that can cause hemorrhaging from the eyes and ears as in serious bleeding. And while we do have firearms, they likely wouldn't do so well at long range due to this alien creature's agility and ability to dodge attacks at high speeds. This means that our best bet would be to use the team that we have and actually use them, and not just meat shields, darn it, in order to actually go up against this creature from different angles. If I'm Kay, I would advise all members to go at this beast from all angles simultaneously while it tries to take us all down. And in doing so, we'll be able to keep it distracted until one of us eventually closes the gap and gets right in its face. Because remember, without their suit, the alien from within can't last very long in our environment, and it will then die shortly thereafter. This means using our suit's heightened abilities, we could superhumanly squeeze the shit right out of it until the suit gets damaged enough to the point where the creature will have to exit the suit of its own sheer will. Because let's be honest, who would want to stay inside a crushed astronaut suit? Not me. So let us use that to our advantage. Kay, like a freaking idiot, just stands there and fires a shot at the Tanaka alien, while pretty much receiving this alien's blast head on. Suddenly, the Tanaka alien's face shakes at a frightening speed and then launches a blast into nothing until it connects with Creepy Face Kid in the distance. The Tanaka alien knew where he was despite him being invisible. The Tanaka alien rises fast into the air and dive bombs headfirst into Creepy Face Kid, plunging him down into the basement parking lot, and he proceeds to beat the shit out of him while the rest of the gang fizzles into existence. But Kato is a stud cut above the rest and jumps down onto the Tanaka alien right before it kills Creepy Face Kid, and Kato squeezes the life out of the alien, getting some help from his super suit, causing this creature to go down for the count. Kay rushes over to Creepy Face Kid as his shattered voice mutters for Kay to save him when he eventually gets 100 points, but Kay has no clue as to what the hell he's talking about, as Creepy Face Kid finally kicks the bucket. Suddenly, however, the Tanaka alien blasts up with more gusto than a bull on Red Bull, knocking Kato back as he tries to take pot shots at Kishimoto. Kato quickly swings back around to protect her and gets the shit kicked out of him instead, with Kato himself getting forced mouth-to-mouth and is about to have his head blasted off right before Kishimoto knocks this alien's face off with some last-minute sultry moves. But this creature is too damn powerful and knocks everyone back just as Kay learns how to use his super suit and gives this alien a taste of his own medicine, beating the alien down into a car as the two intimately duke it out, until the alien grabs Kay's face and is about to blast his face off, when Kay suddenly grabs his gun from the car floor and shoves his gun into the alien's mouth and fires. explosion to erupt from the car itself, killing the alien and winning the game as the gang and Kay, nearly on the brink of death, appear back in front of Kent's good as new. But he doesn't have time to play around and demands to know what happens when someone gets 100 points. And that's when Gantz shows him the 100-point menu, showing two options for players to choose from that list should they ever reach that many points. Option 1, gain your freedom. Option 2, bring someone who died from within a Gantz game back to life, just as everyone then teleports back to their old lives. However, this time, Kay, already wearing his suit, has some ideas and begins training with his suit in the real world, vowing to get stronger for the next time when the next game inevitably summons him back. Elsewhere in Kato's shack of an apartment, he sees on the news that the explosion that happened last night in Gantz was real, and he quickly realizes that the world is going to shit, that it's up to him and Gantz to stop them. And our three heroes ready themselves mentally for the next game, and sure enough, the next game arrives and summons them accordingly, this time with fresh meat, as our veteran trio head into the game with their wits about them, and Gantz gives them their next target. The gang gets teleported to this place, a sinister-looking museum, just as this new pops off on one statue, causing the one right next to it to come to life. Okay, this is insanely horrifying. For this encounter, we lack any prior knowledge on what the hell this thing is, but unlike the Tanaka alien or the Green Onion alien, this thing seems to lack the capabilities to perform any longer-range attacks on us, whether that be in the form of energy blasts or retractable claws like our good old Green Onion friend here, which means we may have a chance. And in this case, I would continue to stay out in the open, so we don't get trapped in the corner of the wall where this monster's brute force strength would surely have an upper hand on us. Keeping a distance will be key for us to have the upper hand. From the looks of things, at least one of them has something more than the standard Gantz X gun, which is a small handgun-sized weapon that does better at close-range encounters. This guy, yeah, this one, is carrying an X shotgun, which is similar to the X gun in almost every way, except when it comes to long distance, it has a higher accuracy that can be fired in the hands of someone proficient from over 1 kilometer away. This is why we need to get this guy out from under this creature's legs, literally, and get him to a safe distance from which he'll be able to take a shot more effectively, because a creature of this size makes me suspect that a simple shot from the X-gun won't do much. If I was Kiro Kato, I'd snag the X-gun shotgun for myself and order the rest of my comrades to begin distracting this beast with additional suppressing fire to keep him at bay, while we ready up our shot from a safer distance. The whole gang is dead, as everyone freaks the hell out and scurries like rats, desperate to survive just one more day, with this monk and this chick heading inside, leaving Kay pretty much all by himself against this ugly beast, right as this monster tries taking shots at anyone he can get his hands on, and it's about to stomp on this one dude until his whole leg explodes, thanks to some good old alien rounds provided by Kato, just as Kay readies his badass pistol, now turns rifle right at this abomination, causing it to explode right here and now. But Kishimoto doesn't have time to celebrate, as she then watches cocky Kay declare to Kato that he's pretty much the bigger Chad and can handle everything that Gantz throws at him. But something is not right, because they haven't teleported back to Gantz yet, which means this death game isn't over, not by a long shot. And they're so right, because what awaits them is truly more horrifying than they could ever imagine, and it will cost them everyone back inside. This scared monk hides from the action outside and thinks he's safe, but no one is safe in Gantz, just as he notices something strange from across this statue-filled room. But he just thinks he's hallucinating as he continues to pray to his gods, not realizing that he's about to face a god right now. He then opens his eyes again and notices the most horrifying thing standing right in front of him, the true enemy of Gantz, this bronzed beast. And right outside those horrifying doors stands this girl, as she tries to see from inside if the horrors outside are over, and she too gets the bright idea to go inside that treacherous room, closing the doors on what might as well be her valuable life. Back outside, Kay and Kato stand there as they try to figure out what the hell is going on, just as they suddenly hear the opening of the museum door, revealing a battle-torn player as she collapses in front of them. Kay then realizes that their horror show isn't over, as he and the gang cautiously comb through the insides of this sinister patriot, aiming their sights on the site of their final battleground, of which they slowly enter, only to see the horrifying corpse of the monk from earlier, or what's left of him, causing their fight-or-flight instincts to go off from within their gut, knowing what we know, that they're screwed, right as Kato realizes what he sees, a 1,000-armed Buddha, bringing Kay to his knees and disarming him in an instant. Okay, this is a little crazy and kind of horrifying at the same time, especially when we consider that unlike the rest of the aliens that we've fought so far, we don't know anything about this creature, except for whatever few visual similarities that it shares with the actual thousand-armed deity in real life known in Himalayan Buddhism. But that's pretty much where the similarities end, folks, and with no other information given to us by Gantz, we're kind of at a huge disadvantage. However, Gantz is no idiot, presumably, and so we should trust that the weapons it's provided for us should work if we can actually land a shot, because from what we've seen, this alien has superhuman speed and is lethal at close distance.
I wanted my hepatitis C gone.
I put off treating mine.
Epclusa, treat.
Which doesn't take a genius to figure out. I mean, have you seen how many arms it's got? At this point, what we can use is the power of teamwork, or more specifically, teamwork that proceeds into backstabbing, because in reality, it's every man for himself. And so if I was Kate, I would lie to Kanto and tell him to distract this alien with his sword at close range, along with Kishimoto, while I try and line up to take a shot from a distance. Now, what's brilliant about this, and different from before, is that with Kato fighting alongside with Kishimoto, from what we know of how Kishimoto feels for Kato, judging from her love stares throughout the entire movie, this would make her a lot more susceptible to making sure that she protects Kato at all costs. And if he gets cut, which he probably will, let's be honest, then that'll make Kishimoto all the more inclined to go crazy and fight this alien even harder. That is the power of love, my friends, and this is what will make her the perfect distraction to keep this alien busy while we take it out from a distance. And if they die in the end, at least we live. This thousand-armed god then lays down attrition with a bombardment of sword upon a disarmed K as he crawls to safety, but not without some serious scratches, leaving him crippled enough to tag team in Kato, but not before a sweet bro session happens between the two, helping to fuel the rage within Kato and have him rise back up to tackle this monster head-on, entering a now empty room with nothing but some clues left behind as to where this horrifying monster could be. Suddenly it pops up from behind him, slashing the glass in front of Kay and almost taking an eye out in the process. And now the two stand ready to duel, mano a mano. The thousand-armed Buddha then lets out a cold whisper of anger-filled words, saying they killed its friends and that it will have revenge upon all of them, sending a shiver up and down Kato's arm, because he knows what he's in. Just then, a loud explosion erupts in front of Kay as the monster disappears, right as Kishimoto stands with her smoking gun yelling for Kay to run, just as she gets knocked down and disarmed by the monster. The brawn beast approaches her menacingly, but that's when Kato charges up with his sword like Kirito with his overpowered dual blades, sending in precision strikes like a surgeon until he gets pummeled back hard. Right then, the bronze monster charges up to finish the job, forcing Kishimoto to sacrifice herself for Kato, and her limp corpse falls down to the floor, causing a feeble Kato to hold her closely and cue the obligatory attempt at love before dying scene, just as she kicks the bucket in his arms. But this cutesy wannabe couple is enough to fuel Kato with enough chutzpah to overcome his pain, and he charges back in to fight this demon a final time, and a final time it proves to be for him, just as he gets stabbed right in front of a helpless Kay, throwing his corpse in front of his best friend, making this the last straw for Kay. The feeble Kay then grabs his fallen comrade's sword and attacks this creature for a final time, but it's hopeless, as it sends Kay back yet again, making him take a different approach, like with this gun, making him jump in the air as the Buddha's swords graze his skin, and Superman jumps over this thing and G.I. Joe rolls right over onto his weapon as he rolls and arms himself with his sights set on this thousand-armed demon. It's done, and Kay fires off a round, but this thing deflects it, resulting in an explosion, and this creature reveals a trump card up its sleeve, this mini statue of itself, as this Buddha demon drops it right down past Kay, as he lays witness to what horrifyingly happens next. This little statue begins to twitch as its little form begins to expand into something straight out of a horror movie, forcing Kay to get some distance from it, but it's no use. The other players outside look in awe and terror as this monster practically ascends from hell, forcing a now much tinier Kay to scurry back a smidge as he prepares for the final showdown. Okay, talk about our worst nightmare. And add to that, our worst enemy is now a billion times larger, and at this point we have little option, because we clearly can't outrun this thing. But our best bet at this point would be, again, say it with me now, folks, teamwork makes the dream work. Time is ticking and a ton of our teammates are dead, but we do have a few meat shields, friends left alive, as we can clearly see. So I would order these two players to run within the museum itself and make this Godzilla alien chase hastening throughout the entire structure, destroying everything in its sight as it tries to kill them. Then while it does this, if I'm K, I would try to get up close and personal to this giant alien's head for a closer shot at it, because I don't see any X shotgun anywhere anymore, which means all we got left is our little X gun, and we risk that alien blocking our shots with its hands if we try and fire it from too far of a distance. This is why we need to get in close. This gigantic statue then Hulk smashes K, causing him to run for his life like a squirrel to his nut, and he sees in the distance Kato. He's alive, and they bro telepathy one another to come up with a last-minute plan, having K here run up into the Buddha's fist as Kato fires his gun, causing K to slip out and continue running forward up this monster's body, getting head-butted back down and coming face-to-face with this horrifying creature. Just then K Superman jumps right into the monster's mouth before he blasts this beast's insides, and it explodes everywhere. Right then K comes out of the storm like a stud and sees his best friend right before he too kicks the bucket, causing K to suddenly appear back in the room with Gantz and the rest of the survivors, with K then realizing that his best friend isn't back yet, and his score tally tops off at 13, just as Gantz reveals that his fallen bro is trapped within Gantz. But you don't simply stop being a bro, and so with 87 more points to go, K then vows to fight as many alien bastards as it'll take to rescue his best bro, and maybe Kishimoto one day. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, let us know what you liked and what you didn't like, and also don't forget to check out our How to Beat playlist and our social media.
If you were trapped in an elevator during the early stages of a zombie apocalypse, what would you do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the zombie outbreak in the end. I know I'm not the only one who randomly thinks, what if a zombie apocalypse broke out right now? Walking your dog, taking a shower, stuck in traffic, or trapped in an elevator like Claudio. With zombies trying to worm their way into the half-open elevator, we'll need to figure out how to defend ourselves. Let's see if we can stay above ground. Today is not Claudio's lucky day. Already late for an important meeting, he suddenly finds himself stuck between the 6th and the 7th floors in a stalled-out elevator car. Claudio keys the call button to reach maintenance, but when they can't give him a straight answer on when he might be free, he demands a direct line to the team responsible for making the repair. According to the elevator repairman, there's something wrong with one of the generators. Claudio politely informs him that he's a fucking moron for not immediately solving all the world's problems, but something on the roof has him too distracted to reply. Suddenly, the repairman yells at his coworker to run for his life, and the line goes dead. Claudio reports the situation back to the maintenance man, but decides not to mention all the terrified screaming. With maintenance going to check on the issue, Claudio decides to take matters into his own hands. He forces the car gate open to find he's just barely below the 7th floor. Unfortunately, the hoistway door is too stiff to open more than a few inches. Now face to face with freedom, he shouts for help into the adjoining office, but the place seems deserted. Just then, Claudio's wife Lorena calls in a panic. It seems someone is pounding on their front door, but whoever it is won't respond when she calls out to them. She's tried calling the police, but all the emergency lines are down. Claudio tells her to lock herself in their bedroom and promises to send his personal driver, Stefano, over to check things out. Terrified, she begs him to come home, but all he can do is try to keep her calm until he finds a way out of his wood-paneled prison. According to the news, shit is really hitting the fan. The streets of Rome have descended into utter chaos, with various sources citing widespread terrorist attacks. Meanwhile, all Claudio can do is try to maintain his sanity while he waits for help to arrive. From out of nowhere, a crowd of frightened office workers stampedes past the elevator bank. As Claudio tries in vain to get their attention, a woman, Marta, falls down next to him and attempts to crawl inside, only to be violently dragged away by an unseen attacker. Thoroughly freaked the fuck out, Claudio tries peeking out into the hall when a pair of blood-soaked coworkers dive at him. But before they can climb their way inside, the sound of more survivors draws their attention elsewhere. Well, that explains all the screaming. We definitely should have told the maintenance guy about the repairman screaming their lungs out, especially if he's going to go up and check it in person. For all we know, they just saw fucking Godzilla out there, and now the only other person in the building capable of helping us is on his way to get barbecue. I'd probably wait a bit longer before going gorilla arms on the car gate, but at least we know where we are now. Before sticking any part of my body through the gap, I would make sure to hit the emergency stop, just in case this thing randomly decides to come back to life and do us Final Destination style. The whole 7th floor being quiet as a graveyard should be cause for alarm, especially with the repair team freaking out like that. We should call some of our colleagues in the building and ask if they know anything about this, or if they'd be willing to check it out. At the very least, we should ask our assistant to come and bring us some water bottles and Snicker bars in case this thing turns into a sleepover. Some pillows and a blanket couldn't hurt either. Lorena's phone call cranks the severity of this situation from pain in the ass to personal hell. Not only do we need a GTFO to check on our wife, popping off citywide could be what's behind all the weird stuff we're dealing with. Even though she said the emergency lines were down, I'd still try calling 113, just Italy's 911, just in case the issue is somehow localized. If we get through, we should first report the situation back at our house, and then request the fire department to try to rescue us from the elevator. I'm not sure why Marta would try and claw her way into the elevator when she clearly had enough time to get back on her feet and haul us out of there. Besides, if she can squeeze her way in, then who's to say whatever's chasing her couldn't also? At that point, we'd just be an easy double kill. There's no way in a million years Claudio would have predicted it'd be zombies storming the building, but this revelation completely changes the nature of this predicament. The elevator is no longer a prison cell. Okay, it definitely still is, but it's also sort of a sharp cage against the infected. Our goal should no longer be to find a way out. Instead, we need to take stock of everything we have and sit tight until Chris Redfield shows up to boulder punch every zombie right in the face. As soon as the coast is clear, I try my best to slide the doors closed, although given how hard it was to get them open this far, that's probably not even an option. We should also try to knock out the lights and then tuck ourselves into a corner on the exit side to stay out of sight. As long as the infected don't have a reason to try to get in, they'll probably just stick to chasing people that don't have the luxury of an impenetrable steel box to hide in. We'll also want to preserve our phone battery as much as possible, as we have no way of knowing how long we're going to be stuck here. I'd send a text to my colleagues, friends, loved ones, describing our location, and then shut my phone off until I have a reason to use it. Speaking of loved ones, as shitty as it is, there's not much we can do for Lorena besides telling her to barricade herself in the most secure room in her house and find something to arm herself with. Even if we can get out of the office, it sounds like the whole city is just completely fucked. The chances of us making it home unzombified are pretty much zero. It's not glamorous, but our best option is to stay put and wait for help to arrive. That said, it's not like we're trapped in a Walmart. If a couple days pass and there's still no sign the military is about to turn things around, we'll need to find a way out before we're too weak from starvation and delirium to get ourselves to safety. We should formulate a couple escape plans ahead of time and wait until things are quiet to put them into action. The first thing I'd check out is whether there's a hatch on the roof of the elevator that we can climb out of. Unfortunately, on most modern elevators, these hatches are locked from the outside, but it's always worth a shot. Otherwise, I'd rip off the handrail to try and pry the doors open a little bit wider, although this is sure to make a lot of noise, so once we have enough space to crawl out, there's no going back. If Claudio survives the zombie outbreak, he's definitely gonna need some therapy with BetterHelp. Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp in honor of May, the Mental Health Awareness Month. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy platform worldwide, with affordable access to professional and licensed therapists who are available anytime and anywhere, which means you wouldn't have to cross zombie-filled streets to get the help you need. Seriously, poor mental health can be extremely debilitating. That's why BetterHelp has made getting therapy easy. The process to getting started is simple. You fill out a short questionnaire to help access your needs, get matched with a therapist within 48